Thank you, Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Your Excellency, President of our great Republic, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, leaders of all political parties, representatives of organized local government, honorable members, the people of South Africa. Deputy Chairperson, on the 24th of May 1994, our revered founding President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, in whose legacy we have recommitted ourselves to the address delivered by His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, who stood before this very august house and delivered his inaugural State of the Nation. Invoking the spirit of another revered South African, Madiba referred to the celebrated writings of Ingrid Jonke as he laid the cornerstone alongside which many more bricks were to be set in place and cemented as we traversed the journey of rebuilding our country from the brutality of our past, much of which inspired the rich body of poetry penned by Ingrid Jonke. Indeed, in 1994, the nation stood on a crossroad. The 1994 breakthrough presented the genuine foundation from which to achieve the South Africa envisioned in the Freedom Charter, a South Africa that belonged to all South Africans, black and white, based on the will of the people. That first parliament itself, the metaphoric embodiment of the will of the people. In that maiden address, referring to one of the key foundational elements required for this work of rebuilding, Madiba expressed the call, and I quote, "We are confident that, motivated by the desire to serve the people, the public service will discharge its responsibilities with diligence, with sensitivity and enthusiasm. Among other things, paying attention to the important goal of increasing efficiency and productivity." Over the years that followed, that call evolved and shaped our conceptualization of the South African developmental state, a state that has the capability and competency to intervene decisively in the economy and in society in order to undermine the multi-generational and multi-dimensional poverty that has systematically engulfed the majority. The state was therefore, of necessity, charged with the duty to all South Africans to redress the historical inequities of the past, to foster inclusive job creation growth, and to create an environment in which all people are able to realize their full potential. Deputy Chairperson, a rich body of literature exists on the construction of a developmental state. Much of the literature nuances the notion of a developmental state differently. However, the seminal bonds of convergence is that successful developmental states require, amongst others, strong and decisive leadership, an integrated and coherent architecture for public administration, including state-owned enterprises. And this, of course, would apply to subnational levels of government. This also entails a developmental state must always have measurable goals and outcomes, a social compact amongst the state, civil society, labor, and business, anchored by the broadest possible mobilization of general populace behind the development vision. In simple terms, as we in the ANC would put it, if we were to ask the question on whether we have indeed succeeded in building a developmental state, noting that ours is a developmental state under construction, one of the key issues that we've set on site was that we will determine the developmental state on the basis of its strategic orientation, secondly, on its technical ability, thirdly, on its organizational capability. In his State of the Nation address last week, President Ramaphosa affirmed the proposition that the project of building a developmental state remains incomplete. There remains a symptomatic unevenness in the capacity and performance across local, provincial, and national government. The National Development Plan ascribes this to a multiplicity of factors, including instability of public service management, compounded by the weakness in consciously cultivating a cadreship of skilled public servants, the erosion of accountability, and sound ethical corporate governance principles, as well as the often undue political interference in the administration. It is in this context, Honorable Speaker and President, that we must welcome the decision by His Excellency the State President of the imminent review of the configuration, number and size of national government departments, as well as the government's model and ethics framework of state-owned enterprises and other agencies. The ethical foundations of the public service have indeed been profoundly shaken by the recent succession of revelations, resulting in the establishment of a commission of inquiry into state capture at the agitation of the ANC and civil society. Amongst others, the National Development Plan called for action that will enable people to do their jobs by strengthening skills, enhancing morale, clarifying lines of accountability, and placing the needs of the people at the core of the public service. Honorable President, one of the recommendations emanating out of the National Development Plan was the need to introduce a set of measures designed to stabilize the political administrative interface. Allow me, with the few minutes that I have left, Honorable Deputy Chair of the National Council, I personally take no joy in witnessing amongst us some of the leaders that we held in such esteem, such as Honorable Lekota. The sad thing is that when political consciousness leaves you, it does not give you notice, it just goes. I would believe that in an attempt to ensure that in doing the work that Parliament must do, and in calling for patriotism, in which many members in this House have done, that all of us will join hands. In the first instance, that there is no single rational South African who will question the need to visit the land question. We might debate the modalities, but the need of addressing the national question, I don't think there's any rational South African who will question that. Secondly, it is our strong conviction, Mr. President, that the review that you have referred to should and must enable us to make decisive interventions to ensure that our SOEs, terms of reference, are aligned to our strategic objective and that they become catalysts in driving economic growth and investments in productive infrastructure. Deputy Chair, our firm conviction that the current moment in our political history provides an important opportunity for putting the project of the developmental state back on track. Others might have tried to repurpose the state. Others might have tried to derail it altogether. Others might have tried to capture it totally. But at this moment, as we stand here, the people of South Africa, all organizations, including civil society, have said no, not under watch. And of course, we are pleased that not only for the record and for history, but we will ensure that never and never again. Mr. President, as I take my seat, indeed the new dawn is upon us. Now is the time. Isikhathi sifikile, kinako, nkari ifikile, ixesha lifikile, mazijike izinto. I thank you.